Dust motes danced in the pale moonlight, filtering through grimy windows. The room, long abandoned, seemed to hold its breath as if waiting for something or someone to break the silence. The air was thick, almost tangible, with the weight of years gone by. Each particle of dust seemed to carry a story, a fragment of a forgotten past. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of decay and forgotten knowledge. Shelves lined with books, their spines cracked and pages yellowed, stood as silent sentinels of a bygone era. The once grand library, now a shadow of its former self, whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. A lone figure silhouetted against the dim light stepped cautiously into the abandoned library. His footsteps echoed softly, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that enveloped the room. Each step seemed to disturb the very fabric of time, as if the past and present were colliding in this forgotten place. Dr. Elias Stone, a man who dedicated his life to studying the past, found himself strangely drawn to this repository of forgotten stories. His eyes, sharp and inquisitive, scanned the room, taking in the layers of dust and decay. He had spent years chasing legends and myths, but something about this place felt different, more tangible. The floorboards groaned under his weight, each creak echoing through the silent building like a mournful cry. It was as if the very structure of the library was protesting his presence, warning him of the dangers that lay hidden within its walls. Yet he pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity. He ran a hand along a shelf, his fingers tracing the titles of books untouched for decades. Each book seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if waiting for someone to unlock the secrets within. The titles, some faded beyond recognition, hinted at knowledge long forgotten, waiting to be rediscovered. An unsettling feeling crept up his spine. It was a sensation he couldn't quite place, a mix of fear and excitement. The air seemed to hum with an energy that was both alluring and terrifying. He knew he was on the brink of discovering something monumental, but at what cost? This was more than just an old library. It was a portal to another time, a place where the past and present coexisted in a delicate balance. The walls seemed to whisper, urging him to delve deeper, to uncover the truths that had been buried for so long. This place held secrets, whispered promises of things better left unknown. The cryptic symbols on the books hinted at knowledge that could change the course of history. Dr. Stone knew he had to proceed with caution, for the line between discovery and danger was perilously thin. Deep within the library's bowels, in a forgotten alcove hidden by shadows, Elias discovered a book unlike any he'd seen before. The library was a labyrinth of knowledge, with towering shelves that seemed to stretch into infinity, filled with the wisdom of ages past. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and the whispers of countless stories waiting to be told. As Elias wandered through the dimly lit aisles, his fingers brushed against the spines of countless volumes, each one a potential gateway to another world. But it was in a shadowy alcove, hidden from the casual observer, that he found it. The book was bound in ancient leather, its cover worn and cracked with age, yet it seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. Bound in ancient leather, its pages crackled with an unnatural energy. The title, etched in tarnished silver, sent a shiver down his spine. Chronicles of the Inevitable. Drawn by an unseen force, he opened the book, its pages unyielding at first, then falling open as if beckoning him closer. The title, Chronicles of the Inevitable, was etched in tarnished silver, and it sent a shiver down his spine. The letters seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, as if imbued with a life of their own. Elias felt a strange compulsion to delve deeper, to uncover the secrets hidden within its pages. Drawn by an unseen force, he opened the book, its pages unyielding at first, then falling open as if beckoning him closer. The first page depicted a scene eerily familiar, a chillingly accurate portrayal of a recent disaster he had read about in the news. The illustration was so detailed, so vivid, that it felt as though he were looking at a photograph rather than a drawing. The first page depicted a scene eerily familiar, a chillingly accurate portrayal of a recent disaster he had read about in the news. The image showed buildings crumbling, people fleeing in terror, and a sky darkened by smoke and ash. It was a scene of chaos and destruction, one that had played out in reality only days before. Unease twisted in his gut, This was no mere coincidence. The book held detailed accounts of events yet to come, each more unsettling than the last. As he turned the pages, he saw more scenes of devastation, each one more horrifying than the last. It was as if the book were a window into a future filled with darkness and despair. This was no mere coincidence. The book held detailed accounts of events yet to come, each more unsettling than the last. Elias felt a growing sense of dread as he realized the implications of what he was seeing. If the book's predictions were accurate, then the future was bleak indeed. The book held detailed accounts of events yet to come, each more unsettling than the last. The illustrations were hauntingly vivid, each one a testament to the horrors that awaited. Elias knew he had to find a way to prevent these events from coming to pass. But the question was, how? The answer, he hoped, lay somewhere within the pages of the Chronicles of the Inevitable. Panic welled in Elias's chest, a sensation so foreign yet so familiar. It was as if the very air around him had thickened, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the overwhelming dread that had taken hold of him, choking him with the undeniable truth. The truth that he had uncovered something far beyond his comprehension, something that could change the course of history forever. This book, this artifact of dread, held the key to future horrors, a macabre script of mankind's downfall. It wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a harbinger of what was to come. The pages whispered secrets of calamities that would befall humanity, each more terrifying than the last. He flipped through the pages, each one a punch to his gut, each illustration a grotesque masterpiece of impending doom, a global pandemic. The illustrations were vivid, almost alive, depicting scenes of suffering and chaos that seemed all too real. Cities crumbling under the weight of monstrous storms, the skies darkened with ominous clouds, and the winds howled like banshees, tearing apart everything in their path. The devastation was absolute, leaving nothing but ruins in its wake. Wars waged with terrifying weapons that defied logic. The technology was beyond anything he had ever seen, weapons that could obliterate entire armies in the blink of an eye. The battlefield was a nightmarish landscape of destruction and death. He had to tell someone, warn the world. But how could he convey the gravity of what he had discovered? How could he make them understand the urgency of the situation? His hands trembled as he reached for the phone, his mind racing with thoughts of who to call first. But who would believe him? The weight of his discovery pressed down on him, making him feel small and insignificant. He was just one man, a historian, not a prophet or a savior. The enormity of the task ahead seemed insurmountable. A madman's ramblings, they would say. They would dismiss him as a lunatic, someone who had lost touch with reality. The thought of being ridiculed and ostracized gnawed at him, but he knew he couldn't stay silent. The ravings of a historian who had delved too deep into the darkness. He had always been fascinated by the mysteries of the past, but this was different. This was a darkness that threatened to consume him, to pull him into an abyss from which there was no return. He felt a cold hand grip his heart, squeezing the hope out of him. The despair was overwhelming, a suffocating blanket that threatened to smother any glimmer of hope. But deep down, he knew he had to fight it. He had to find a way to warn the world, to make them see the truth before it was too late. Days turned into sleepless nights, as Elias found himself drawn back to the library, his life now consumed by the grim prophecies within the book. He tried to forget, to convince himself it was all a bad dream, but the images were seared into his mind. Every news report, every flicker of unrest in the world mirrored the book's predictions with chilling accuracy. He was no longer a historian studying the past. He was a prisoner bound to the future, forced to watch as the world marched toward its inevitable doom. He was trapped in a story he couldn't rewrite, a puppet dancing to the strings of fate. The library, once a sanctuary of knowledge, transformed into a prison of his own making. The musty smell became suffocating, the silence a deafening symphony of dread. He became a ghost haunting the stacks, his eyes reflecting the horrors he'd witnessed within the book's pages. His reflection in the dusty windows no longer resembled the man he once was. The jovial glint in his eyes had been replaced with a chilling emptiness, the weight of the world crushing his spirit. He was a man broken by the future, a prisoner of time. Section 6. The eerie silence that speaks volumes. The silence of the library amplified his solitude. Each ticking second was a hammer blow to his sanity, a constant reminder of his powerlessness. He longed for the comfort of human interaction, for a voice other than the whispers of dread that echoed in his mind. Yet he dared not share his burden. To involve another soul would be to condemn them to the same fate, to trap them within this nightmare of preordained tragedy. So he remained silent, a solitary witness to the unraveling of the world. Section 7. A desperate attempt to rewrite destiny. Desperation gnawed at him. There had to be a way to break free, to change the course of events, to rewrite the future that was being forced upon him. He scoured the library for answers, hoping to find a counter-curse, a loophole, anything that would offer a glimmer of hope in the face of despair. But the library, once a source of comfort, now mocked him with its silence. The books, usually brimming with answers, offered no solace, only echoes of the horrors to come. His hope, once a flickering candle, dwindled with each passing moment. Section 8. Accepting the inescapable embrace of fate. Exhaustion, both physical and mental, finally claimed him. He collapsed amidst a mountain of books, their titles blurring into a sea of meaningless words. As he drifted into unconsciousness, he saw a vision of the future, not from the book, but from his own life. He saw himself old and broken, still trapped within the library's walls, his mind a wasteland of horrifying memories. It was then that he understood. There was no escape. His fate, like the words etched in that dreadful book, was sealed. Section 9. The haunting echoes of what could have been. He woke with the chilling realization that he was both prisoner and warden within his own personal hell. The library, his sanctuary, had become his tomb, a place where the echoes of the past whispered of a future he was powerless to change. He was left with nothing but time. Time to watch the world burn. Time to count the seconds until the prophecies he'd read came to pass. He was a ghost tethered to the mortal realm by the cruel hand of fate, forever haunted by the echoes of what could have been.